welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula One. The Monaco Grand Prix has come to a close, and what could be said other than boring. Yeah, unfortunately so. Monaco lives up to its tradition of not being very exciting or eventful, and to prove how uneventful it actually was, the top 10 that qualified in the positions they qualified actually finished the race in that position as well. That's the first time ever in Formula One history that that's happened, so yeah, really does prove that there wasn't much to talk about. The on-track action all happened on lap 1 with the antics of everyone up and down the field, but then after that the restart came and it was very much line astern. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their overall race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes offered some drivers to do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers to do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Room standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is, and based on this race weekend overall, can you see them going up? Can you see them going down? There was a lot of drivers that put in some impeccable performances, and there was others that did incredibly badly. As always, Monaco sorts out the men from the boys, and this race was no exception. Let's take a look at the constructors' standings as well for you. As always, I have got room to manipulate this, and so far there's just a couple of teams that have received minus 10 points. Will I do anything this weekend? Well, you'll find out at the end of the video, but yes, I can plus or minus points to teams that I think are doing badly or really well, and the drivers are under-delivering anyway. But without further ado then, let's kick things off with the race winner then, shall we? It is Sha-la-la! Oh, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la! Oh, sacre bleu! Sacre bleu, sha-la-la-la-la! Winning at his home Grand Prix at last. And not only that, it's the first time he's ever stood on the Monaco podium in any form. You know, even in the support race categories over the years that he raced in, they either didn't race at Monaco, or like such as the F2, he did race at Monaco, but always had bad luck. He had double engine failure one year, he got involved in a first laps incident in another. It was just, yeah, absolute chaos for him. And as we know, the Formula One history here, 2018 brake failure, 2019, that was another DNF, wasn't it? That was him being a bit over-exuberant, I think it was. 2021, he had the crash in qualifying and they didn't change the gearbox after qualifying on pole. Gearbox failed on the outlap. It's just been a constant barrage of unluckiness. Even in the Historics race that he was leading here a couple of years ago, he had brake failure and crashed. That's how bad his Monaco luck has been, but it has turned around this weekend and this season for him. Qualified on pole with a great pole lap, and led the race. He got away twice off the line absolutely perfectly, and that's all he needed to do, and then just maintain the gap over Oscar Piastri. In the end, he crossed the line over 8 seconds ahead of his nearest rival in P2 of Oscar Piastri, and was just able to flex the gap at all times. Played a really good strategic game in slowing down the pace, so the top 4 didn't have a gap over to Russell in P5, who was managing his mediums, so they were never within a pit stop window. If anything were to happen that they got a free pit stop effectively, it was McLaren versus Ferrari. It's been a long time since we've said that, but this weekend it was a game of strategy, although there wasn't much on-track action and not really that many pit stops either due to the red flag at the start. It did provide some strategic elements that Leclerc had to keep on top of ultimately, because if that gap had have extended too much, Norris from P4 could have had a pit stop, could have closed the gap up on much fresher tyres. Maybe, just maybe, we could have seen an on-track overtake at that point, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, overall for Leclerc this weekend, it has been flawless, hasn't it? You've got to say that. It has been flawless. So for Sha-la-la-la-la, I'm going to award him 11. He's getting a bonus point from me. I think it's amazing to see that he's finally broken his Monaco duct of the unluckiest man at the unluckiest circuit. You know, his home race was always a bit flawed, a bit like Rubens Barrichello at Brazil, that he could never quite break. It was looking like that for a long time, wasn't it? But this year he's finally broke his duct, and he has stood on the top step of the podium for the pinnacle of motorsport, apparently anyway, in Formula One. What a fantastic effort. Cha-la-la. 11 to you. Finishing in second place, we come to Oscar Piastri. What's your favourite pastry? Well done to him. Again, all done in qualifying. The qualifying effort was a stunning lap, just a few tenths, fractions away, really, wasn't it? Just over a tenth away from Charles Leclerc in the end, but still had to improve that lap time to stay in that second place, and that is what he did do. Got off the line well on the first start, looked like Sainz was going to go for him, but held it around the outside, which was very ballsy. That gave Sainz a puncture, but that wasn't Piastri's fault. I just think Sainz has sort of lined the corner up for, yeah, Piastri's going to yield here, but Piastri didn't yield on that start. The second start came, and it was same again. In fact, this start by Piastri was just that little bit better, and he was able to gap Sainz going into turn one as opposed to having it on the inside. And again, in the race itself, it was just all about managing pace. He was threatening and looking to challenge Leclerc at some points in the race, got within a second, but as always, you can't do anything at Monaco. And then in the closing stages, I think, as always, Piastri tends to chew his tyres a little bit more than his teammate does, and we've seen that in previous races. This weekend, again, I think that happened, which is why the gap was extended to over 8 seconds to Leclerc in the end. But again, Piastri, for a rookie, I know he's only in his second season, you know, he's into his second half of his second year, and he's doing a fantastic job, isn't he? Yeah, we say that on tyres, but that will come, I think. He is a great all-round package. If he gets on top of that tyre life, he will be a force to be reckoned with. He has been unlucky at stages. Miami, of course, was one. And he's had some lonely races as well, but my God, he has proven that he has been the right choice for McLaren, and he was right in choosing McLaren over Alpine as well, isn't he? So yeah, a podium for Piastri, matching his best career result of second already. Never really looked quite the threat for the win though, but again, it was all done on Saturday. Had he maybe qualified pole, got a good start, he could have led the race quite comfortably, even with chewing the tyres. I don't think anyone was really going to be an overall threat. For Oscar Piastri, he is going to be getting 9 points from me. Well done to him for that. 9 points to Oscar Piastri. Great podium this as well, it must be said. And yeah, for Oscar, overall a solid weekend, and most of the job was done on Saturday. Finishing in third place, we come to Carlos Sainz. Smooth operator, smoothish. Smoothish, yes, he does take P3, but what a lucky P3 this P3 is. Carlos Sainz in the first, as mentioned already, with Oscar Piastri on the first start, the first official start. He went up the inside of Piastri. Piastri decided to hang it round the outside, and bravely so. And Carlos Sainz just touched the front side pod, barge board area of Piastri, giving him a front left puncture, and he went off at the start of the race, and it was yellow flags, and then the red flagged it, and we were like, what the red flag that for? But thankfully for Carlos Sainz, it wasn't for him, although he did have the puncture and was able to limp it back to the pit lane, where they got a full restart, and they were able to claim their place back in P3, and meant that that first start never happened. Now, I always think like this is a bit unfair for me, because Sainz was involved ultimately in an incident, and every car apart from Zhou that was technically involved in the incident went past sector 1. Now, if you go past sector 1, you class it as a time, but they decided they weren't going to this time, which is fair enough. But I thought with Sainz, like, as much as it was a little bit harsh on him to send him to the back, he should have been. But then I kind of think, well, this makes up for Australia in 2023, where we had that fucking ridiculous restart with like 2 laps to go or something daft. And he was given a penalty for taking Alonso out, even though it didn't in the end affect Alonso's position because of the red flag. But Sainz had the penalty. If everyone remembers that one, I was fuming about it, wasn't I? In fact, I was fuming about the whole restart procedure, to be honest. But yeah, I think, you know, karma comes in swings and roundabouts, and he'd earned this. So, yeah, he lost out in Australia podium back in 2023 for bullshit reasons. A restart that didn't count, but Sainz still got a penalty for a start that didn't exist. Absolute bollocks. This time around, probably in theory, because everyone apart from Zhou did go through sector 1 before the red flag was called, in theory, that should have been that positions where they were at that point counted. However, Sainz got a little bit of a lucky situation there and was reinstated to P3, and I don't blame him for that. For Carlos Sainz, I am going to give him 7.5 because unlike Formula 1, I am going to count that first lap, and he did just understeer into the side of Oscar, not expecting Oscar to hang it round the outside, and ultimately he did cause his own puncture at the start there, and was lucky that the FIA reinstated his position of P3 as opposed to starting at the back. So yeah, you know, he was lucky in that aspect. I totally get it. And he did drive well, putting Oscar under pressure towards the end of in the end of the race effectively, but couldn't do anything about it. He did deserve the podium, don't get me wrong, but he was a little bit lucky. And I don't always award luck. So Carlos Sainz, 7.5 to him. Finishing in 4th place, we come to Lando Norris off the podium. After so many races on it, he's had a P2, a P1, a P2. He couldn't stop scoring them, could he? But here it all comes to an end at Monaco. Maybe a little bit frustratingly so as well, to be honest with you. As mentioned already, there was nothing really he could do in the race. It was just that window to Russell where you think, well, if he gets it big enough, then he could, in theory, get a free pit stop, catch up back up to the Sainz on fresher tyres, perhaps, but it never happened in the end. No one decided to pit inside this top 5 because the gap wasn't quite big enough in the end due to Leclerc managing the pace, Sainz managing the pace on Norris as well. And yeah, the Ferrari team played a good game with that at long last. Great strategy. Wow, I never thought I'd say that with Ferrari. But yeah, for Lando Norris overall this weekend, again, there's not really much to say about the race. He was P4, he stayed P4. But once again, when there's so much promise in qualifying, he can sometimes bottle it. And I think P4 was a little bit of a bottle this weekend for Lando Norris. As harsh as that may seem, 12 points on the board is still a fantastic effort. Don't get me wrong on that. But Piastri was P2, and that's the rookie driver. You know, he's the more inexperienced. Should he have been P2 as well? Well, he should have maybe been on pole, to be honest, if Piastri could be P2. That's where I'm going with this. So, you know I got stick last fucking race for giving Verstappen a 7.5, but Lando Norris this week, and he's getting a 7. Solid 7 from me. I think it was a good race overall. But yeah, his teammate ultimately outraced him this weekend and outqualified him, and that shouldn't really be happening. You know, Norris, yeah, you have an off day here and there, and if an off day is P4, then fair enough. But for me, I don't think it needs rewarding with massive amounts of points. I think he ultimately should have done more on the Saturday, and should have been a guaranteed podium really for me, but it all went wrong in qualifying, and that was that. So it's a solid 7 to Lando Norris. Finishing in 5th place, we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that top 5, and here he is securing a top 5 finish for what feels like the first time in years. I don't even know when he last had one, to be honest. Did he finish in the top 5? Fuck no. To be honest, I'm not really that interested in Mercedes at the moment because they're both doing my head in. But yeah, George this weekend was encouraging, it must be said. Qualified P5, which is a respectable effort. Fair play for that. And in the race itself, started on the hard tyres, had the red flag, so switched to the medium, and then stayed on those mediums throughout the entirety of the race, resisting pressure from Max Verstappen and his own teammate at the end there on much fresher tyres because they both stopped, they both pitted. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, George this weekend did the most he could with the equipment he'd been given. I think a P5 finish is the best he could have hoped for, and he did stove off and fend off from Verstappen behind. So, has to be commended. Does he deserve a perfect 10? No, but I'm going to give him a really, really respectable 8. 8 to George Russell. I think that's a fair score, that, for the car he's got, the position he finished, the fact that he held onto the medium tyres for quite a long time is fair enough as well. But, you know, a Monaco where there's always chances and opportunities, I think he was a little bit doomed by starting on the hard tyres because he had to go onto the mediums then and then didn't pit, which is fair enough. But, yeah, you know, maybe a little bit harsh by a point there for George, to be fair. But I think 8's a respectable score, and he didn't do anything wrong this weekend. So, yeah, 8 to George of the Russell. 6th place, we come to Max Verstappen. Wowee, wowee. It reminds me a little bit of Hamilton 2021 at Monaco, wasn't it? Where he just had no pace at all, you know, didn't do really well in qualifying, did hardly anything in the race, was lucky to pick up a couple of points. Here with Max, he did qualify himself 6th, so stayed 6th. Tried something different with a pit stop to try and catch up to George Russell, which he did, but was unable to overtake him due to the nature of the Monaco streets. On much fresher tyres than any other circuit, it'd have just breezed past him, wouldn't it? But once again, though, you look at this and go, oh, F1's boring. F1's boring around Monaco. Look at Formula E, look at Formula 2, look at Formula 3. Those races around Monaco are always exciting, which proves that the circuit can provide some really, really exciting racing on top of being a prestigious event event within motorsport. Formula One, the cars are just too big. But does that mean that that's the problem of the circuit? Well, not necessarily, when F3, F2, Formula E, and even historics can provide fantastic racing because the cars are much smaller. And, you know, you could say, yeah, well, it's a spec series as well in those, which is, you know, correct to some extent. But ultimately, if the cars were a little bit smaller, we could see more overtaking opportunities, you know, arrive from that. But as it is, you know, Monaco shall remain on the calendar, and the day Monaco isn't on the calendar is the day I am no longer a Formula One fan and no longer doing this, because as much as people say it's boring, it always provides the most exciting Saturday of the weekend, and every single lap, you know, those drivers are at 100% concentration, because the slightest mistake, they're in the barrier, they're in the wall, and they are out. You know, there's no room for error. There is no room for error around Monaco, and that's why I like it. It's a driver's circuit. Sorts the men out from the boys, and if you're not up to speed, you're going to be at the back or you're going to stick it in the wall. So fair play Monaco. I hope you remain on the Formula One calendar for many years to come, because like I said, the minute it's dropped, the minute I'm not watching Formula One, and there's a lot of reasons not to watch Formula One already, but if they got rid of Monaco, then no, it wouldn't be for me. But anyway, we're talking about Max Verstappen anyway, aren't we? And he's getting 6. He's getting 6, my God. Can't wait for the comments. But yeah, what can I do? Ultimately, he started 6, he finished 6. Did try and put George under pressure, didn't get round him. Did he have the best car this weekend? No. Yeah, I think ultimately it was a bit of an understeery car, a bit of a dog. But yeah, 6 points I think is fair for a P6 finish in a car that we're so used to seeing on the podium, at the very least, if it's not a race winner. That's that, I'm afraid. So yeah, I'm getting ready for the comments now. Fucking hell. But 6 to Max Verstappen. Then we come to Lewis Hamilton securing P7 in the second of the Mercedes, and once again just didn't have the match for his teammate George, and that is the ultimate facts to the game. Again, much fresher tyres at the end there, but was unable to overtake Max and then obviously go for his own teammate. Yeah, I don't really know what to say for Hamilton this weekend, other than once again average, and that's the way it's going to be. People can say to me, well, he's only a couple of places behind George, and you know, the split of Red Bull. Yeah, but George finished ahead of a Red Bull. Hamilton didn't ultimately. So, you know, Hamilton this season has been very anonymous, very lonely. I think I said it in the last episode. I'm not sure if this is just because he's eyeing up Ferrari now, doesn't really give a shit about Mercedes. It wouldn't surprise me. Or is it the fact that he's not included in as many team briefings, come to the factory kind of thing, you know, come and have a chat with us? Because ultimately they don't want to give their secrets to Ferrari. Not that Ferrari are going to take any from based on where Mercedes are at the moment. But, you know, obviously when you know that the contract's already signed before a season starts, it can provide an awkward dynamic within the team. And the atmosphere within the team can get a little bit frosty towards the end of the season, perhaps, you know. But if, you know, Lewis isn't feeling the love like he used to do. He's clearly made that decision based on what's happened behind the scenes to leave Mercedes as well. So, yeah, you know, ultimately I think it's a combination of everything at the moment, but ultimately he's just not delivering. He's just not delivering. So it's a middle of the road 5 for Lewis Hamilton for me. A P7, yeah, that's about where we expect him to finish these days. In fact, I messaged one of my friends that doesn't really watch Formula 1, but knew that the practice sessions, Lewis did quite well. And, oh, I see Lewis is up there again. That's really great. And I messaged back, yeah, we'll finish P7 in the race, though. And sure enough, he did. So there you go. Middle row 5 to Lewis Hamilton anyway. What has been a very disappointing season this season continues, really. 5. Oh dear. 8th place, we come to Yuki Tsunoda in the Visa Cash App. Buy one, get one free, as James Vowles called it. Fair play. Fair play, James. I enjoyed that, because they bring so much heritage and prestige within Formula 1, which means we can't have Andretti on the grid, because Visa Cash App, RB, Maxi Tampon Racing, buy one, get one free. Just the sheer name of it, I just think, do you know what? 1950, Fangio. You know, you just get them names off the tip of your tongue when you mention a historic racing name like that, don't you? And the second Red Bull team. Ooh, lovely spicy meatball. So yeah, talking to Yuki Tsunoda anyway, What could be said? Finished P8 in a season that is crucial for the points down in the latter half of the field to secure P6 in the Constructors' Championship. He has done a mighty, mighty job. It's his first ever points within Monaco. He qualified P8, which was fantastic. That's the best he could have hoped for with the cars that were ahead of him, and the cars he did beat in qualifying as well, and finished P8 as well. Resisted pressure from Alex Albon for quite a number of laps. He was just managing his tyres while Alex was behind, chewing him up and trying to find a way past, and then his team radio came over. Now you can push, Yuki. He went, yes, let's go. And he extended a gap of over about 15 seconds in the end, come the flag, over Alex Albon, which is a great, great effort, and showed that Yuki did have the pace. He was just managing the tyres and managing them well. So a fantastic effort by Yuki there. Again, P8 is the most he could hope for, the best finish he's going to get, so he's getting 10 points. He's getting 10 points. It's a perfect 10. That is effectively a race win for that team down there in that field, picking up the points as and when possible. This is his 6th time in 7th races that he's picked up points now, or something like that anyway. He's doing a stunning job for the RB squad, isn't it? And certainly deserves all the praise he's getting. And yeah, it's just a shame that RB, Red Bull, Visa Cash App, Maxi Tampon, buy one get one free, don't really hold him to the highest acclaim that I think he deserves to be. He had a couple of rough seasons at the start of the season, but he was kept due to the Honda agreement and the want of the Japanese driver. Didn't really deserve the amount of times and chances that he had to stay within Formula One, but ultimately he has done, and he has now delivered the goods, you know. So yeah, fair play Yuki. He is an absolute superstar this season, and without him the Visa Cash App squad would probably be behind us still. So yeah, big points on the board once again, and a perfect 10 to Yuki Tsunoda. 9th place and securing the first points for Williams of the season. It comes at Monaco, of course it had to. It's Alex Albon after a cracking qualifying effort. Again, all the effort was done in qualifying, and it was crucial that he qualified P9 because he got ahead of Pierre Gasly, who'd also snuck into Q3 as well. So yeah, he was sort of like in the mix there, P8, P9, P10, all fighting and squabbling over the remaining points this season and this weekend. And they got themselves into that Q3, which meant a great chance of points. And Albon was able to out-qualify Gasly, which in the end was crucial for their race because they picked up 2 points instead of the 1. And with those 2 points with a P9 finish, overtake Alpine, who have 2 P10s to pick up 2 points. So, of course, the result is better. P9 is better than 2 P10s. So they snatch, in theory, at the moment, that position away in the Constructors. Incredibly early days, but it's nice to see Williams and Alex get points on the board. Around Monaco as well. It has been long overdue, it must be said. We've seen some races this season where Williams just haven't had the pace. We've seen it where Alex has made mistakes. You know, maybe points would have been possible, but they're just not delivered for whatever reason. Strategy's not been quite there. We've seen a couple of P11 finishes, but just not quite picking up the P10s and the last bit of the points, really. But this time around, delivered the goods, delivered them well. It's a P9 finish, and he's getting 9 points on the board for me for Alex Albon. I am just nicking a little point off in there, despite the fact I'm being very, very harsh, but it is the cruel room for a reason. Because if he'd out-qualified Tsunoda, then that would have been 4 points for him, because we know how difficult the circuit is to overtake. So there was opportunity to out-qualify Tsunoda, but I don't really want to hold that against him. He's still got Gasly. He's still got Gasly. But a fantastic effort nonetheless to Alex Albon. Nice to see him inside the points. Long may it continue. Canada next time out, which of course was the circuit where Williams secured a massive haul of points there with a stunning P7 finish and defensive drive from Albon. So let's hope for more of the same again. Let's hope this is the start of things to come for Williams and for Alex, and let's see them try and climb their way back up the Constructors' order. They've got Haas on their backs next. They've got to catch them up, but for now it's 9 points to Alex Albon. In 10th place we come to Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, picking up his first point of the season and his first Q3 appearance to go with it as well. Out-qualified his teammate, which is a great effort, it must be said. And the only thing to note about Pierre Gasly's race was the fact that his own teammate tried to kill him. Oh, Esty Bestie, I'm coming to you in a minute. But once again, it was a disastrous start. Thankfully, thankfully we had the red flag, because I think Pierre Gasly's car was damaged, that they did manage to get fixed and back into the race. Had it not been a red flag and just been a safety car, I think we could have seen a double retirement there for Alpine, because I'm sure they had to change suspension components on that car. It wasn't just like a flat tyre or something, you know, it was more substantial than first let on. So yeah, good job that he could take the restart back in his rightful P10 position, and he stayed there for the remainder of the race. Was threatening Alex, who was threatening Yuki in return, but as we know in the end, Yuki was just managing his tyres. And once he was told to go, he pushed and went off into the distance, did Yuki. Gasly kept Albon under pressure, but ultimately to no avail, and ended up P10. But it's still a point. It's still a point. And that gaps them even further ahead of Sauber, which look like they're never going to score points ever again in Formula 1 by the looks of things at the moment. But yeah, Gasly did all he could with the equipment he had, all down to qualifying once again, and it's 9 points to Pierre Gasly for that. Well done, Pierre. Solid effort. 9 points to you. Just outside the points of finishing in P11, it is Fernando Alonso. Oh dear, oh dear. His race came undone when he played second fiddle to his teammate, trying to create a gap so that Stroll could pit, come out on much fresher tyres, catch the cars up ahead, and hopefully try and get the positions to get into P8. That's what Alonso did, and then his teammate binned it. But we'll come to his teammate in a moment. But yeah, Alonso, his race really was undone in qualifying, it must be said. There's not really much more I can say about that. Another poor qualifying performance from Fernando, and another really average race where the fact that you're behind Lance Stroll and having to play team orders is a little bit unusual. So yeah, a very dud season for Alonso this season. The update's not looking to be working as they should once again. Surprise, surprise. He's going to be 4 for me. Below average, less than average, but I don't want to criticise him too much. Had he not had to play the team game to Stroll, maybe, just maybe, he could have snuck into a point, but we're never going to know. He put himself in that position after qualifying. 4 to Alonso. 12th place, we come to Daniel Ricciardo in the second of the Visa Cash App buy one get one frees. I don't really know what to say about Ricciardo. He was the first of the gaggle to be stuck behind Alonso and ultimately couldn't get round him. So once that gap had been built to Stroll, so he had a free pit stop, their race was effectively over. I mean, we were only on like early lap 20s, were we? Mid-lap 20s in the race, and we were already coming round to lap this gaggle. That's how slow Alonso was going, and the fact that Leclerc was trying to manage his pace as well, so they didn't get a gap to Russell to have a free pit stop. Everyone was managing their pace, but I think Alonso really was just a rolling roadblock at the point there. Yeah, I don't really know what to say for Ricciardo. Once again, qualifying didn't go his way, didn't get his Q3 like his teammate did, and in the race was held up by Alonso, and that was that. He's 3. I'm giving him 3, and he needs to thank me for it, because there was a lot worse drivers out there this weekend who we're coming to shortly. But yeah, Ricciardo, the less said the better. 3 points to him. Next up, we come to Valtteri Bottas in the first of the Sauber Romeos. Kick me up the arse, Stake F1 team. Yeah. P13, but not a bad finish actually, to be fair, from where he was. Qualified P19, elevated up the order a little bit because of the Haas starting from the back of the row because they're getting disqualified. But yeah, went for a pit stop early in the race because he was already at the back anyway, just ahead of his teammate, and then made some actual overtakes, which was decent and was well worth watching on for. Did a good move on Logan Sargeant, didn't he? Did a good move on his own teammate, and here he is, P13 on merit, to be fair. So yeah, Bottas couldn't really do much more. Again, caught in the Alonso crocodile, which allowed him to do that effectively a free pit stop because he just quickly caught them all back up again. But yeah, I've given Bottas 5, middle of the road 5. I don't think he needs praising. I just think the Sauber was shite this weekend. But he did provide some overtakes, which is unbelievable, really, isn't it? So yeah, Valtteri Bottas, middle of the road 5 to him. Yeah, that's as good as he's going to get. Securing a stunning P14 finish at his favourite circuit, where he never crashes, where he never makes a mistake, and where he never went one lap down on his teammate Sergei Sorokin in 2018 after he had to serve a 10-second stop-go penalty in the race due to the team not getting his wheels on correctly within the right time frame, and he still ended up being lapped by his own teammate. What a mighty, mighty effort. It is Lance Stroll.
I'm the driver that made way for the incredible Michael Schumacher. Without me being arrested for pepper spraying a taxi driver, who knows what may have happened.
And there we have it. Bertrand Gachot of the week to Lance Stroll. Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, honestly, it was like he was pepper sprayed halfway through that race, wasn't it? Lance Stroll was absolutely dismal this weekend once again. Qualifying was okay though, out-qualified his teammate. That makes it 4-4 in the standings now. Can you believe that against Alonso? It looks quite impressive on paper, that, doesn't it? It does look quite impressive, but then when you nit into the nitty-gritty details, not so much, because in the race itself he was given a free card effectively by his teammate Alonso to hold everyone else up so that he was in that P11 position, could get a free pit stop, then push on the cars ahead that were 8th, 9th and 10th. There's a chance there, there's opportunity for points. What am I going to do? I'm going to clip the wall. I'm going to clip the wall, give myself a puncture, send myself to the back of the gaggle that Alonso had created. Bravo, Lance, bravo. Well done, you. Proud of you, hon. Once again, Monaco, not Lance Stroll's favourite flavour of circuit. And once again, hit the wall. I mean, he hit it about 4 times last year, didn't he? He's hit it every year, to be honest, hasn't he? Because he's not got the mental capacity to keep concentration long enough around the streets of Monaco. As mentioned, sorts out the men from the boys. Well, once again, Lance Stroll proved he's an impetulant child and he's only there because of daddy's money. Fantastic effort, Lance. It's Bertrand Gachot of the week to you. Next up, we come to Logan Sargeant in the second of the Williams, and just avoiding of the week due to the fact that I'd run out of everything to give. Yeah, Dave gives me 3 every episode, and this week I've used more than 3. So yes, it was on the thinnest of thin ice. He's getting 1 point. The pace was poor. I don't know what more to say. He was pissing about with Zhou, wasn't he? And Zhou looked dismal. Yeah, it's one anyway. The less said, the better for Logan. He needs to be out. He can't keep maintaining this kind of level of poor performance. At least he didn't crash much, but yeah, there you go. One to Logan Sargeant, and well, I've done with it. Move on. Next. Next up, we come to Zhou Guanyu.
My career was mediocre at best. That's why I spiced things up a bit by pepper spraying a taxi driver.
And once again, there we have it. A Bertrand Gachot of the week to Zhou Guanyu. What a fantastic, fantastic effort by Zhou. His first one of the season, long overdue. I think he should probably be on about 3 now. But yeah, the pace was ridiculous, wasn't it? He was about 4 tenths away from his teammate in qualifying, despite the fact they were effectively back row starters. They qualified 19th and 20th. Not a good effort. And then in the race itself was just a mobile chicane, really, and wasn't due to strategy. That was just his pace. It was absolutely nowhere. He was overtaken by Logan Sargeant, actually, under blue flag conditions because he wasn't paying attention. So, you know, even Logan Sargeant had that little bit of wit about him. But Zhou didn't. So yeah, it was miles off the pace. He was like, oh God, it was just so bad, wasn't he? He got overtook by a car, and then like within 2 laps, that car that had overtaken him was already like nearly 10 seconds ahead of him. It wasn't good at all, was it? So Zhou Guanyu gets his first of the week, and it is Bertrand Gachot to award him with it. What a fantastic effort by Zhou this weekend. Once again to earn himself an of the week. The first one of the season. Can you believe I'm saying that with Zhou? That is unbelievable, isn't it? But yeah, it certainly deserves to be on about 3 now. But as the season has progressed, there's been a lot worse drivers. But this time, he definitely deserved one. It's Bertrand Gachot of the week to Zhou Guanyu. Then we come to the unfortunate list of retirements. The first on this list, the last in theory to retire in the race. It is, of course, Esteban Ocon. Esteban to you. Ain't like Esteban Ocon.
I've often wondered what my best or fastest lap was within my F1 career, but sadly I always draw a blank. My fastest moment outside a car, however, well, that's easy. It's just after I pepper sprayed a taxi driver. I legged it to the nearest toilet to dispose of the empty canister behind the toilet. Usain Bolt wouldn't have beaten me that day. Christ, I was like lightning.
Hey, Bertrand Gachot of the week to him as well. What a silly, silly manoeuvre that was. The team are fuming with him. Absolutely fuming with him. There will be consequences. Well, he's certainly felt the consequences and the wrath of the FIA, giving him a 5-place grid drop for the next race for just being an absolute moron. There's nothing else can be said about that. And how many times have we seen over the years Esteban Ocon fighting his teammate too hard, going over the limit, making contact, having collisions? It all started back in the Force India days, didn't it? With his teammate Sergio Perez at Azerbaijan, where they could have had a double podium that weekend, but he was just too over exuberant and took his teammate and himself out of that contention race. And the main race itself this time around was no exception. Stupid move up the inside. Just before you get into the tunnel, absolutely lunged it up the inside. I mean, you wouldn't do a lunge on anyone there. We've seen it go wrong in the past with Jenson Button tipping Pascal Wehrlein on his side back in 2017 there. You know, it's just not a corner that you can really overtake at. I mean, Monaco's difficult for overtaking anyway, and you have to seize every opportunity possible on the first lap. But you don't really make a move like that on anyone, let alone your teammate, when you're on the fringes of the frigging points on lap 1. You know that first lap's crucial, and where you are on lap 1, it tends to be where you're going to stay. It was lucky that the red flag did come out. As mentioned, Gasly's car was more damaged than just like a front wing and a flat tyre. You know, it did have suspension damage as well, and they had to fix that. So if that red flag hadn't have come out, that was a double DNF on the spot for the Alpine squad due to Esteban Ocon's stupid, childish behaviour and antics once again. We've seen it time and time again from him. He falls out with every single one of his teammates. Gasly and Ocon aren't bosom chums anyway as it is. But yeah, it's just unbelievable. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You know, it's just no need for it. A team that is squabbling for every point possible, and you put yourself in a position where you're taking both cars out effectively. Stupid behaviour. So Esteban Ocon gets an of the week to him as well, because it's just needless. Absolutely needless, and he deserved that 5-place grid penalty. He deserves consequences that Alpine have set out for him. Hopefully that means they're not going to renew his contract. They said they will act swiftly with their decision, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Esteban Ocon, I think, has been taken out of the window by many drivers and teams that want him. Alpine certainly wanted to retain him, although Gasly and Ocon were expressing their displeasure and wanting to move afield because of the poor performance this year. But now I think Alpine have taken their name out of the shop window and gone, go find someone else, Esti, you fucking moron. Esti gets an of the week to him. Next up in the list of retirements, we come to Checo, Sergio Perez.
208 races in my career without a single win. How much longer before Hulkenberg takes that record off me?
And there we have it, an of the week to Checo, Sergio Perez. And I've run out of Bertrand Gachos now, so I've got to use the ones that I've got left. I think I've got 2 De Cesares left, so I'm sure it'll be him there. So yeah, thanks Dave. I definitely needed the 3 each weekend, and I've used 3 a lot of the times this season. I've not got many spares at all. So yeah, oh dear. But yeah, it was worth noting. Sergio Perez gets his of the week simply for the fact of that ridiculously dismal qualifying. I don't care if the car's not working well. You know, Perez ultimately looks at his teammate there. Verstappen is P6. He was saying he was blocked in qualifying and blah, 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 and without that we could have been in Q3. Well, you weren't, because you're on the fringes of getting knocked out of Q1 at every opportunity that session. So don't suddenly tell me that if you got through into Q2 you'd have easily scraped into Q3. Ridiculous, don't be so stupid. So yeah, Checo's race ultimately came undone at the start, the poor qualifying obviously. Then he got off the line, didn't get off the line too well because he was left fighting with the likes of the Hasses that started P19, P20. Now, Perez did glance in that right-hand mirror and saw that obviously Magnussen was coming, but he couldn't go anywhere because he got Hulkenberg on his left that was on the way up in the Haas as well. So I don't blame Perez, and Perez isn't getting the penalty for the incident. That solely relies on one driver in particular, who we'll come to in a moment, of course. But yeah, I don't blame Perez for the incident. I blame him for having a shite qualifying and being down there with the fucking idiots. That's what I say. It's ultimately his fault he qualified so low down that he had to go fight with the morons at the back of the grid. And this is what happens when you have to deal with idiots, unfortunately. So yeah, Sergio Perez, I don't blame him for the incident. I do blame him for the poor qualifying, and I do blame him for the stupid excuses as to why he didn't get into Q2, despite the fact that he never had the pace to get anything better than 14th all Q1 session. So yeah, it could have scraped into Q2, but he's still been knocked out, and by quite some margin as well. So yeah, it's Andrea De Cesare, as I want to say, of the week to Checo Perez. Then we come to Nico Hülkenberg. Oh, I needed that. So, for Nico Hülkenberg, the only real innocent victim in the DNF list, it must be said, qualified a great P12, a solid P12. The qualifying one pace looked like the Haasers could have snuck into Q3, but as it was in Q2, just didn't quite improve on their second lap times, did they? They did the second push lap. Magnussen made a mistake on it. Hülkenberg did improve, but not enough to get into the Q3 session, which was unfortunate for them. But P12, still a good effort, still a chance to do something in the race with that. Maybe scrape a point had the strategy gone their way. Unfortunately, rear wing infringements on both of the Haasers meant they had to start. Originally, they were chucked out of the session and had to start from the pit lane. But on appeal, they got a back row start. And I think looking back on reflection, they would have taken the pit lane start any day of the week, because the starting on the back of the grid did not pay dividends, did it? So yeah, unfortunately, Hülkenberg was involved in an incident that wasn't his fault, and both Haas cars out on the spot with a very battered and broken Checo Perez in the Red Bull, sat in the middle of the circuit. Yeah. Not Hülkenberg's fault at all. So for a retirement, as you know, the maximum I can score them is 5, and that is what Hülkenberg's getting. Qualified P12, sent to the back of the grid due to no fault of his own, taken out due to no fault of his own either. Like, what can you do? If it's not your day, it's not your day. 5-2, Nico Hülkenberg. And then last but by no means least, we of course come to Kevin Magnussen.
They used to call me De Crasheris, but I bet I can still do better than you.
And there we have it, of the week to K-Mag. Are we surprised? Are we surprised? No, we're not at all. What I am surprised about is the fact that the FIA decided they were going to take no further action and not look into it any further with the incident that he caused on Sergio Perez and put it down to a racing incident. It wasn't a racing incident. That was K-Mag being a fucking moron. I'm sorry, but as much as I like Haas and as much as I like K-Mag, that should have been a race ban. I cannot believe he's been allowed to get away with that. And once again, where's the consistency? You know, he's picked up 2 penalty points on his licence for cutting a corner. You know, but then here he is, taking a car out, taking himself out, taking his teammate out, causing severe damage to Checo Perez. Could have injured anyone in that circuit, could have injured anyone in the cars, himself included, Checo as well. The damage to the Armco that was sustained, it was lucky that, like, photographers that sit on the side there, marshals, anyone really, that could have been severely injured due to his own incompetence. Why would he stick a wheel up there? The road always goes like that. The road always goes to the left. Checo had nowhere to go. He was already there. He tried to turn left to avoid, but then noticed Hülkenberg was coming up. Ultimately, Hülkenberg was already here and backed off. I think Hülkenberg could see what was happening, but Checo has not got no sixth sense. He cannot tell that Hülkenberg's backed out of it at that point. So thought, well, I'll stay middle. K-Mag can back out of it. He didn't do it. He just stuck it up there. Where? There's a fucking wall that goes like that. It goes to the left. Like, it's not as straight. It goes like that. And he has decided to stick his wheel there at a position where he knows that Checo can't really go much further because he's got Hülkenberg approaching. Oh, just get off the throttle. It's lap 1. It's lap 1. You've already got a compromised race weekend due to the fact that you're starting at the back of the grid. Yeah, I'm very, very disappointed in the FIA this time that they have not given him a ban. I really am. This is disgusting. This is ridiculous behaviour. If you think he warrants 2 points on his penalty licence for cutting corners, then he certainly deserves 2 points on his penalty licence for attempted murder. Like, it was just brainless. It was completely and utterly brainless by Kevin Magnussen there. Big damage for Haas on both cars, both out of the race on lap 1. Like, there could have been anything happening in that race, and it could have been points for the Haas team. You just don't know how it would have played out. But instead, it just decides to try and do a stupid move on a car that is ultimately faster than the Haas anyway. That one, like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. So, yeah, Kevin Magnussen, it's an of the week to him. It has to be. Very, very concerning. Very, very concerning indeed. The fact that he's running on 10 points on his licence and still thinks it's okay and acceptable to do this, and now the FIA don't penalise him for it when it's not okay. It's not okay to do that. That is fucking ridiculous. So Kevin Magnussen gets an of the week to him. The less said about it, the better now, to be honest. Let's just move on. See what happens in Canada. But, yeah, I'm not impressed with K-Mag at all. So everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of the Monaco Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated standings with the scores they've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is now. Was I overly harsh with the of the weeks I've given? Should more have received an of the week as well? I think there's only really Logan Sargeant that had escaped it, but he overtook Zhou, which was a fair move, I suppose. So I think he deserves a 1 point for that. But yeah, there were so many of the weeks this weekend as always. Monaco sorts out the week from the chaff, and they have really, really delivered or really, really under-delivered. There's no in-between this weekend at all. Let's take a look at the constructor standings as well while we're at it. See where your favourite team is now. I've decided to leave the teams alone once again this week, but sometime soon there will be big changes. I'm going to look at the scores, standings, see if I think that some teams deserve to be moved up due to their efforts, even if the teams aren't delivering the results. And I do think that then maybe some teams should be moved down because they're not providing the car that is suitable for the drivers they've got in them. And that will all be studied as the season goes on, but changes could come very soon. A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan of Mushy Gaming for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen, for the driver icons you see in the corner of your screen, and for the intro as well. Without him, this series would be more pointless than it already is. And who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for providing me with the of the weeks that you all know and love. This week there was plenty of them. So I will see you all in a couple of weeks' time for the Canadian Grand Prix. Thank you so, so much for watching as always, guys. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you all then. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And as always, much love.